54 billion to 100 billion. So this company has nearly doubled in size over the last decade. And of course, what's driving this is consumers and businesses are buying more things online, and delivery and logistics are taking a bigger part of our economy. So this is a company that is growing. And if we look at operating profits are the profits you get before you pay the banks and the interest, and it's how the company presents their own financial statements. And one thing most of this data comes right from UPS or from industry publications or Wall Street. But as you can see, the line goes up, profits are up 96%, up to 14 billion in 2022. And that was really driven by the pandemic really jump-started this shift to buying online. So the company is doing extremely well with their revenues and profits. And this one shows, that UPS is very much located in the United States. Their business is in the United States. There are 83% of the employees are in the United States. So that's 443,000 out of the 536,000 are located in the United States. And most of their revenues come from the United States. And what does this mean for your negotiations? Well, it means that if there is a strike, they don't have a lot of international revenues and business to keep them floating. So how the U.S. goes is how UPS goes. And so we've seen that the profits and revenues have really gone up. This shows the stock price of UPS. UPS is a company you can buy their shares on Wall Street, and it goes up, but the trend is way up. And 10 years, 117%, 5 years, 41%, 3 years, 75%. So the shareholders are doing really well. The last year, almost every company's stock price is down. But over the long term, this company, if you're a shareholder, you're doing very well. And the future for the company is bright. So this shows Wall Street likes to project out what they think the profits will be for the company so they can make their investment decisions. And they put these models together, and I analyze these models, and they show, that this company is going to continue the trend of making record profits, up to 15 billion by 2026. So we got a growing company, very profitable, and their future is bright. So they're in a position to afford a fair contract. But now let's sort of look at who is benefiting from the profits at UPS. And if we look at this slide right here, the far left in blue, the total compensation for employees has risen by 28%. That's all employees, so it includes management. But that is way lagging the growth in revenues, operating profit. The executive compensation is up 161% over that same time period. Executive compensation seems to never go down. And then UPS shareholders have done incredibly well over. So the compensation is not keeping up with all the sort of key measures of the company's profits and growth, as well as management and shareholders. And let's look at the contract. I'm looking at the Teamster full-time top rate from the contract is up over the life of the contract about 14%. Inflation is up 20%. So that effectively means there's been a wage cut because your purchasing power is not the same. If full-time top rate Teamsters kept up with inflation, making $5,000 more a year or $2.45 a year. And part-timers, it's far more dramatic. In 1982, the company used to pay same rate for full-time and part-time, and they changed that in 1982. And if those wages have increased at the same rate as inflation, it would be well over $25 an hour today. So clearly, the contract is not keeping up with inflation, and as the company continues to book these massive profits. The other way to look at it is how have shareholders done over this time period? So since 2012, the total increase in benefits and compensation for all employees is just about a little over $14 billion. But over that same time, shareholders have got over $50 billion. And there's two ways the company distributes their profits to shareholders of the company. They give them a dividend every 3 months. So if you own the stock, you get a dividend every 3 months, or they buy back stock. They use their cash, they buy back the stock, which means there's less stock out there and yours goes up. So these are sort of direct transfers to the shareholders. And shareholders clearly are doing, and the investors in the company are doing a lot better than the workers that are generating the success of the company. And even in 2023, UPS told their investors that they plan to continue this, giving $8.3 billion in dividends and stock buybacks in 2023. Who is benefiting from this? Well, as I said, UPS is owned by the shareholders mostly, and you'll see the top 10 on the left there: Vanguard, BlackRock, Fidelity. They're the ones getting the big profits. And the top 10 control about 35% of the shares. So it's really these top 10 are doing extremely well. And most of the stock is owned by Wall Street institutions. And if we take a look at CEO pay, which again never seems to go down, it's in 2012 it was 12 million. Today, last year it was 28 million. Carol Tomei is doing well, and the ratio of her pay to the average worker's pay or median worker's pay is 548 to 1. So executive comp's going up, shareholders are doing well. And one of the things the company disclosed is that the median worker pay is around $50,000. That means 50% of the workers at the company make less than $50,000. So they may use this kind of propaganda about how overpaid Teamsters are, but the data just doesn't support it. But let's now go to the competition, and I'll take a glass here. Sort of look at the competitive market that UPS is located in. So this looks at the U.S. market share of package delivery. And UPS is clearly, with 37%, is the largest company and dominates the market, followed by FedEx, the Postal Service, and Amazon. So UPS is still the dominant company in this sector. But the next slide is a slide I want to show that the company might show. The company might show to scare you, and it shows how it's changed over time. So this shows the market share of all the parcels delivered from 2014 to 2021. And if I was the company, I would point out, look, UPS is going down, FedEx is flat, but Amazon is coming up quick. And this is parcel volume, not the revenues they make from the business, just the amount they deliver. And the other down at the bottom, the 2%, that's DHL and some of these private vehicle deliveries. So it's a very small part of the market. Most of the market is these four companies. And one thing to note also is Amazon's is mostly delivering their own packages as well. So if I was the company, I would say, look, they're coming up close. We're in a very competitive situation. We can't afford a better contract. But the data, as we'll see in the next slides, contradicts that. Both FedEx and Amazon have some serious problems. FedEx, as we'll see later, they have very low profit margins compared to UPS, and their shareholders have been agitating for change at the company. FedEx subcontracts at a higher rate than UPS, and those subcontractors, private companies, are almost forming their own union, pushing back against FedEx, saying we need to be paid more. FedEx has a real problem with their labor policies. They don't have hardly any union representation. Unlike UPS, UPS may not like a union contract, but it's predictable. But what we had with the labor market with FedEx, they didn't know how much their labor costs would go up or down, which created a lot of volatility and a lot of problems for the company. So FedEx has their problems. And one of the biggest problems for FedEx is that their ground and air are separate. So on the same day, customer may get a delivery from FedEx Ground and FedEx Air, FedEx Express on the same day. Why don't they combine the two, you might ask? And they don't want to do it because it would be easier for workers to organize and form a union. So they keep them separate. And it really makes the company less efficient. And this is, obviously, they've just laid off 12,000 workers. So these problems, FedEx has some serious problems compared to UPS. Now, Amazon, they also have some serious problems. A lot of people say, well, maybe they'll be a competitor, but they're missing many of the elements they need to compete with UPS. Amazon has somewhere around 100 aircraft. UPS and FedEx have over 600. Amazon is not very good at returns, two-way delivery, and then the last mile delivery. Amazon has contracts with both UPS and the Postal Service to deliver their packages because they just don't have the framework and infrastructure to do it. So they have a lot of obstacles to be a key competitor to UPS. It would take billions to catch up, to build out that infrastructure. And Amazon is losing business on their core business of selling stuff. They lost $10.5 billion in 2022. So they're really starting to have some problems. And they're subleasing. They have too much capacity. They are subleasing their warehouse space, and they're cutting staff as well. So FedEx and Amazon maybe are competing with UPS, but they have some serious problems. And this is reflected in the shareholder return. So over the last 3 years, UPS is up 75%, FedEx is up 26%, 27% for DHL. Amazon is actually down 9%. So these kind of problems I outlined are actually reflected in the share price. So UPS is far exceeding in their performance. The other kind of scare tactic that the company might use is to say, well, our labor costs are so much higher than our competitors. And one thing I want to note is Amazon doesn't disclose any of this data, and that's why they're not in here, because they just don't disclose it, so we don't know. But labor costs at the Postal Service and UPS are 55% of operating costs. That means of all the money it takes to run the business, how much is labor? And UPS is higher than FedEx, much higher, because of the union contract. And so if I was the company, I might use this to sort of as a scare tactic to say we can't afford, our labor costs are too high. But when you start digging deeper, you see that this isn't the case. They may have higher labor costs, but their profit margins are way higher than their competitors. UPS's profit margin, that means, so if they get $100 in revenue, that means they keep 13% or $13. So the higher the profit margin, the better. So UPS's profit margin is twice that of FedEx. So the labor costs may be higher at UPS, but they're generating more profits because they're more efficient than their competitors. And this is reflected in, if you look at profits per employee. UPS has the highest operating profit per employee. They generate over $24,000 in profit per employee. If you look at FedEx, $10,000. And if you look at the Postal Service, they're losing money. So when the company says our labor costs are too high, this really, it's not the case. The fact is that having a union contract with the Teamsters has made the company more efficient and more productive. And while labor costs may be higher, it's you make the company way more efficient than its competitors. And this is also reflected in, a pretty stunning statistic I found, which is that, in last year, UPS, there were over 11,000 packages per employee delivered by UPS. And that was 8,000 by employee by FedEx. So it shows how much more efficient UPS workers are and how much value they add to the company. And this is not just me saying that. Barclays is a Wall Street firm, and they analyze companies, and they wrote in a report, we find UPS driver efficiency to be nearly 50 or 60% higher relative to FedEx. So yes, labor costs are higher at UPS, but as workers, you are far more efficient and productive and are contributing to a far more profitable company. And, the market is not static. The market is going to grow. This shows what they call e-commerce, or buying stuff online, and then all that has to be, delivered by companies. And the sales in e-commerce or online sales are going to rapidly grow over the next couple of years. And so that means the pie is going to continue to grow, and that you're in an industry where the prospects are growth, not decline. And that's a great place to be and gives a lot of leverage and opportunity for the union to grow with them. So UPS is overall in a very strong position compared to its competitors. But let's take a look at what a strike might look like, and could competitors sort of handle the volume if a strike happened, if the company forces that. And let's look at 1997, where that was the last time there was a major strike at UPS, a 16-day strike. And what we see here is what the profits were leading up to the strike. And then you see in the rapid going down is that strike led to about a 98% decline in operating profit for the company in that quarter. So the strike was devastating. And then, during that time, the company was saying, well, this strike is going to damage our relationship. We're not going to get our business back. But if you see, the line goes up. Business came back quickly after the strike. So if we look at that, UPS is a much bigger company than it was in 97. But if we take that same sort of 98% decline, what does it look like if it happens in the summer? And this shows, again, what the Wall Street believes their profits will be over the next several quarters. And it's, trending up. But if there was a strike and it went the same way as 1997, 16-day strike would cost $3.2 billion. It would virtually wipe out any profits they have. A month-long strike, $6.2 billion. And, that is just like that's half their profits for last year. So it would be a dramatic hit on the company. And you also see Wall Street is expecting the company to continue to grow, as I've noted in the prior slides. So a UPS strike would be very, very damaging for the company. So one of the questions is, well, if there is a strike, can the company pick up the slack? Can the other competitors pick up the slack? And this shows, it's a little complicated, but when I go through it, it makes more sense. But this shows what the average daily volume of packages delivered by the major companies. So UPS delivers 20 million packages a day in 2021. And by CNN's analysis, that's about 6% of the nation's gross domestic product. Its economic power goes through UPS. So if there is a strike, Amazon, Postal Service, FedEx, they're going to have to pick up 20 million packages a day, which just seems inconceivable. It's massive, massive amount of volume they would have to pick up. And you see those black arrows, that's indicating that Amazon needs UPS already today without a strike. They cannot deliver all their packages. They are one of the biggest customers of UPS because they don't have the capacity to deliver to everywhere. And they also contract with with the Postal Service. So, when you take UPS out of the equation, that is a lot of packages. It's inconceivable that they could pick it up with all these relationships. And there's a lot of discussion about private vehicle delivery and these upstarts, but it's a very small part of the market and very hard to conceive that the international infrastructure of UPS could be replicated in any way. So it's very, very hard to conceive of how any meaningful volume could be picked up by the competitors. And just to run through it, there's over 125,000 delivery vehicles. That's internationally, but most of those in the U.S., over 600 aircraft, 1,000 package operating facilities, 85 million square feet of warehouse space. Who's going to do all that if the Teamsters are on strike? It's just inconceivable. And while UPS has grown, so has the Teamsters, the international union. In 2012, there were 156 million in net assets, and that's grown to 537 million in 2021. It's probably higher in 2022, and 315 million is devoted to the strike fund. So there are significant assets to back up Teamsters if they decide to strike at UPS. And just to conclude, to sum it up, UPS record profits and revenues, long-term growth prospects are very strong. The shareholders and management, they've disproportionately shared in the success of this company. While worker compensation is not kept up with their profits or inflation, yes, it's more competitive for UPS than 1997, but the company is significantly more productive and profitable than its competitors. And UPS does, if there is a strike, UPS is very dependent on the U.S. market. It's not going to be able to get a lot of revenue to help them nurse them through a strike. And if there is a strike, 20 million packages a day would have to be picked up by the competitors, which, as I walk through, it seems very improbable. So I think the leverage is very high for the Teamsters in this moment, and the data backs it up. And I hope this is helpful and look forward to your questions as we continue the webinar here.
Great. Thank you, Chris. That was an amazing presentation. A lot of detail, a lot of great information for all of us. I know people will want to see some of those charts a second time. So we will make a video of this presentation available online and by email after this webinar is over. So after years of givebacks, our union has new leadership and a new direction. We are going on the offense, and we're mounting a real strike threat at UPS. Now, I know my coworkers are really excited about what's coming, but they also have questions. So we have asked a few longtime UPSers and shop stewards to talk about the questions they get from their coworkers, and also to hear their reactions to this presentation. After that, we'll take some of your questions, so please put them in the question box at the bottom or top of your page. First, I would like to call on Antoine Andrews, who is a shop steward from Local 804 in New York. Antoine was featured with other 804 brothers and sisters in a long but very great article in the New Yorker that you can check out on the TDU website. Go ahead, brother.
Thank you. Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. Thank you, Brother Sean. Can you guys hear me? All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Brother Sean, for that introduction. Yes, definitely do check out the New Yorker, a very epic article. And also thank you, Chris, for that great information. Again, my name is Antoine Andrews. I am a proud Local 804 member, TDU member, shop steward, union organizer. And I must say, as a shop steward, one of the frequently asked questions as of lately, will we receive strike benefits? And the answer is yes. So the strike benefits would be 5 times your union dues. And also your union dues is established based off of 2.5 of your wages. So for an example, me, myself, as a regular package car driver or any full-timer who pays union dues as of $140 a month, your strike benefits would be $520 when and if a strike begins. As a part-timer, if you're making $20 an hour, your union dues would be $50. That would equate to $250 if we do go on strike. So as we all know, well, many of you may not know, in the past, it took 8 days before the strike benefits will begin. Thanks to Sean O'Brien and Fred Zuckerman for modifying the Constitution, the strike benefits will begin on day 1. So basically what I took from Chris' presentation is that the strike won't last long, but it will definitely hurt the company because the company would not be able to function and operate without us, and they would lose tons of dollars, billions, over $1 billion if we continue to be on strike. So with that being said, we as Teamsters have the leverage.
Thanks, Antoine. Now, I'd like to introduce David Thornsberry, who is a veteran of the 1997 strike. He is a longtime shop steward and is now currently working as an organizer for Local 89 in Louisville, Kentucky, the home local of Fred Zuckerman. Go ahead, brother.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it. And I agree with what Antoine just said. The packages, they can't move without us. I went on strike in 1997. And one thing I've learned about the presentation today, and great job on that, Chris, was there's way more packages today than there was in 97. There's way more money for UPS to lose today than there was in 1997. Now, there was a lot of scare tactics that the company was performing on their workers back in 1997. We had PCMs with management talking about, if we go on strike, you're going to lose volume, you're not going to be working, you're going to be laid off. They were mailing letters to your home saying the same thing, mailing letters to your spouses. So not only they got their company working on you, they got your spouse working on you as well. You can expect more of that. And to be honest with you, I was young then. I was very low seniority as a full-time driver. And to be honest, I was nervous. So I think a lot of people are a little bit nervous on that. But one thing I've learned about the presentation today, there's a lot of same players today that there were in 1997. You had FedEx back in 97. You had RPS, which is now FedEx Ground. You had the post office, and you had DHL. And one thing was clear then, they could not deliver our packages when we were on strike back in 1997. And these days, it's mainly the same company, except you have a new one. You have Amazon. Now, part of this presentation shines light on that as well. I mean, if we were to go on strike in August, Amazon's going to have to handle their own stuff. That's several million more packages a day that they'll have on top of that. They can't handle the 20 million a day that they're going to have. Somebody's going to have to come up with if we are on strike. Amazon, as well as this was stated, they don't have the planes to handle the air volume as well. And they can't do two-way delivery. They're not set up for that. They don't pick up and deliver to commercial stops as well. So that's a huge deal. The one thing that is different these days is the PVDs, personal vehicle drivers. And we've been hearing a lot about that. That has been causing some of our workers anxiety. I will say this. You can't put packages that you don't have on a PVD. That's just one thing. There's so many packages that have to get here. And when you don't have the sorters, the unloaders, the trailers to bring them here to put them on a Ford Focus or a Toyota Corolla, it's not going to happen. Feeder subcontracting, it's rampant right now. And obviously we got to address that in the upcoming contract. And they did this in 1997 when we was on strike. There were some subcontractors that were transporting some volume, but it was very little because, like I said, you did not have the mechanism in place of unloaders and sorters to get the parcels on these tractors, trailers. Now, UPS cannot operate through subcontractors. They couldn't do it in 1997, and I feel certain that they cannot do it in 2023 if there is a strike. And also, picket lines were everywhere. In Local 89 in Louisville, we have several different UPS facilities, and our picket lines were strong, especially at our largest place, Worldport. The picket lines were strong there, and they weren't crossing, and the packages were not moving. Another thing, back in 1997, the IPA, Independent Pilots Association, which is the UPS pilots, they honored our picket line. Every single day, there was a UPS pilot on our picket line. And you can count on the same thing happening in 2023 if we are to go on strike. And that was a huge help to us as Teamsters. We were standing together with not only our coworkers, but the Independent Pilots Association. We heard over and over back then, profits are going to be not bouncing back. Well, as you see on the presentation today, in 97, they bounced back in a very big way very quickly. So we came back to work, and we came back to work as winners. And today, our leverage is much stronger than it was in 1997. In 1997, I got a check, a one strike check for $55. The only thing I regret about that is I cashed it. I wish I would have had that and framed it and put it on the wall. So the strike fund is much better these days, and that's a big deal. Now, management's going to spread rumors. They've already started. They spread it in 97. And they're starting to spread them now. You can count on more of that. Just know that that's going to happen. If there is a strike in August, management will send UPS management out in package cars. They did it in 97, and to me, that's probably one of the most memorable and, to be honest, fun part of the strikes, because we actually went out and followed those managers. We called it ambulatory picketing. And there's nothing better than going up to your boss at a stop on a package car with about 6 of your coworkers with picket signs walking around the truck. And they finally open up those doors and you realize hardly anything's in those package cars. Now, they did that for a reason. They took those trucks out for a reason. They're trying to make the workers think they can do this job without you. They couldn't do it then, and they couldn't do it now. They tried to create that delusion. So count on that happening as well. And we moved this company, and we can shut it down. Now, we won in 1997, and we'll do this in 2023 as well. Now, TDU was a huge part in 1997. On our picket line on Bluegrass Parkway in J-Town in Louisville, we had our tent or overhang to protect us from the elements, and we had TDU bulletins, which were put out daily, taped up on the top of it, so all of our members could read what the latest it was nationwide to keep the members updated, any current potential contract talks. So TDU was a huge part of that, and we're forever grateful for what they did back in 1997. Now, it's important to have a national network of stewards and rank and file members, because let's be honest, Fred and Sean are great, but they're dependent on us to come together as workers to battle the company as one union, right? So we definitely got to do that. And TDU and UPS Teamsters United were Teamsters working together to inform and involve the members and beat corporate greed. Now, if you're not involved in the contract campaign, we ask that you get involved. And if you're not a TDU member, and if you believe in what we're talking about, we're asking you to sign up, and you'll be glad you did. And that's all I had to say, Sean. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, brother. Great words of advice right there. Now, in order to win this contract fight, we're going to need to unite full-timers and part-timers. This union involves all of us. Without all of us, we won't be successful. Now, I can't think of anybody who would be better to talk about this idea of uniting full-timers and part-timers than Carlos Silva, who's a shop steward in Local 572 in Southern California and a trustee on the TDU steering committee. Go ahead, brother.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate that. So like you said, my name is Carlos Silva. I have a combo job at the Gardena facility in California. The first part of my job consists of the preload. So I work with a lot of part-timers. So when the slides came up about the part-time pay and the inflation, I was excited because it shows the part-time wages have not kept up with inflation. And if the part-time wages actually do keep up with inflation, the part-timers will make over $25 an hour today. So we all know that the part-timers definitely deserve that, at least $25 per hour. We also have to fight for more full-time jobs, like mine, 22.3 jobs, like the one I have, like I said. We won these jobs in the 1997 UPS strike. And in this contract, we can win 20,022.3 jobs. The reason why I say this and the reason why this is important, and we're talking about all these issues, is that we need to let the part-timers know that we are fighting for everyone, not just the drivers or certain classifications. This fight is for everyone. Everyone needs to be involved in this fight. That's one way that we can build a united contract campaign. And this is also another way to win a united strike. Another thing I would like to say is in regards to strike benefits. They're pretty good for part-timers. They're pretty solid. So if a part-timer is making about $20 an hour, you'll probably get around $250 a week and you strike benefits. If the part-timer is making about $15.50 or $16 per hour, you'll get roughly around $200 a week. Now, we know that's not a lot, and we know it's not going to make you rich, but it's enough to get you through the strike, especially if you're thinking ahead and know that we're fighting for $25 an hour and more full-time jobs that would definitely benefit you when the strike is over. Now, let me put it like this. A strike is like a picture. It's just a moment in time. But if you actually think about it, and you get a $10 increase and a $20,000 new full-time jobs, now that is something that think about it. That's something that it could last forever. So in the 1997 strike, part-timers honored the picket lines. And I know that in 2023, if we were to go on strike, the part-timers will honor that picket line. So remember, united we win. Unity is the key. United we win. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Now, in a minute, I'm going to open this up and put your questions from the chat to Chris Boner and to our Teamster panelists. But first, I want to call on my brother, Greg Kerwood, who is a shop steward in Boston with Local 25, the home local of our General President, Sean O'Brien. Go ahead, brother.
Thank you, brother. And first, I'd like to say good afternoon and good morning to the 1,100 people, brothers and sisters on this call. I have to say that is incredibly encouraging to see. It makes me happy. It means people are angry and interested and ready to fight. And that's what it's going to be all about. I want to go back, if I could, to something David Thornsbury said about the company trying to divide and demoralize us. We know that that is the case because they're doing it already. As many of you know, the company is currently laying off 22/4s all over the country. I've been with UPS for nearly 19 years. I was there in the Great Recession in 2008 and several other economic downturns. And I have never seen this level of layoffs. It's completely unprecedented. So we need to be very clear about this. These are not layoffs by a company that is struggling to survive and needs layoffs in order to stay in existence. I think Chris's presentation made it very clear. UPS is not only thriving, but they are posting record profits every single year. And the future for the package industry and UPS could not possibly be brighter. This is simply a case, once again, of the company putting profits before people, right? The same workers that 2 years ago were essential are now being treated as disposable, once again, in their never-ending quest to cut costs and increase profits. But we generate those profits through our labor. And every year we watch those profits, as Chris showed, be distributed to executives and to shareholders to the tune of $8 billion just last year. And we also need to be very clear that this is a calculated ploy by the company to scare and divide us, to weaken our resolve to fight for what we deserve, by scaring newer and younger members, and by pitting RPCDs and 22/4s against one another, against part-timers and vice versa. Please do not be fooled by this. We have seen this tactic before. The company crying poverty during a contract year, only to produce record profits again before the ink is dry on the new agreement, has happened time after time. But this time is going to be different. We have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get the contract we deserve, to truly make change in the work and personal lives of our members, and to completely revitalize the labor movement. The roadblock that was Hoffa is gone. We have new militant leadership ready and willing to fight. We have a company posting unprecedented profits. We have a general population favoring unions more than they have in decades. We have the ability to communicate, motivate, and move 350,000 UPS Teamsters around the country in a moment's notice, just like we're doing today on this call. We have a company that is far less able to financially tolerate a strike than they were in '97, and competition that has little to no ability to pick up the slack. I and many others like me have been waiting a lifetime for this moment. Now is the time to stand as one, to fight for a life-changing, history-making contract, to lead the charge of a newly invigorated labor movement that will make the 21st century the century of the worker. But we, all of us, each and every one of us, need to get involved and need to join the fight. If we stand united, we cannot be defeated.
Wow. Fantastic, brother. Thank you. I like the idea of the century of the worker. I'm here for that. Now, I'd like to open this up to some questions from the chat. So Scott Jenkins, who is a TDU organizer, is going to be reading off some questions in the chat. It's not too late to add them. I see we've got 74 questions in there. Obviously, we won't be able to get to everybody, but we hope to get to as many as we can in the time we have left. So, Scott, go ahead.
All right. Well, let's knock out some of the easy ones first. There's been a lot of questions about the slides and the information in the presentation, and will you have access to them? Yes, we will post on our website both a video of this webinar as well as the slides, so you can all take this information that Chris had and share it with members that you work with. So Greg ended his talk by saying this is going to take all of us getting involved. We had a few questions about the pledge card drive in the chat. So before we get to details, I think we could start there. Stephen Reed asks, are we allowed to pass out pledge cards on company property? And then another member, Ethan from Local 344, asks, what exactly will the pledge cards be used for? How can we explain to members what the purpose of the pledge card drive is? Antoine or any of our panelists want to take that away?
Hi. Yes, I'll take that question. Just trying to take my video off. I'm sorry if you guys can't see me, but I'll answer the question anyway. So in regards to handing out pledge cards or getting members to sign up for the pledge cards on the company property, you can absolutely do that on the company's property, just as long as it's in a non-work area, like, for example, a cafeteria. And also, it cannot be done on the clock. You can perform this function during off work hours in the parking lot. And, I humbly employ everyone to get involved and to push these pledge cards, because it's very important for when we go to the table, we have a stack of these pledge cards, and that will be an example of, the membership involvement. Where there's unity, there's strength. So we definitely want to get these the members signed up for these pledge cards.
All right. We've had a few questions in the chat about healthcare in the event of a strike. What happens to our health insurance if we go on strike? David Thornsberry, do you want to give us an answer to this one?
Full-time and part-time workers who have team care they'll continue to have their insurance as well, which is way different than in 97. That wasn't the case then. I am reminded in 97 there were a bunch of labor organizations, labor unions that were donating or pledged support financially to the Teamsters Union in the form of that, as far as strike fund benefits and healthcare benefits. Now, in that case, this time when we have all these people who are still be on team care, for those of you that don't, that assistance can be helped to spread around for that need. So that is a big deal. This is basically part of the information. More of the information from the union will be coming, but this is a good start on that as well. So I hope that answered your question on that.
All right. Another topic that's come up in at least 4 or 5 questions in the chat and in the question and answer box has to do with the government's role in a potential strike. So some people are asking, Ronan from Local 170, last year we saw the government shut down a rail strike. Can that happen at UPS? And if so, what's the plan? Ken Paff, do you want to give us the answer to that?
Okay. Rail workers and airline workers, unfortunately, are not covered by federal labor law, National Labor Relations Board. It governs UPS and the vast majority of other corporations. They are under a rotten anti-labor antiquated law called the Railway Labor Act. That law requires government mediation and allows a contract to be imposed, which is exactly what happened. This is not possible in UPS. The government does not have that kind of power. The federal government's recourse, if they wanted to shut down a UPS strike, would be what's called a Taft-Hartley injunction. It was last tried in the 1970s when Carter was president, before most of you were born, and it failed. So that would be the recourse. President Clinton, of course, in 97 did not want a strike hurting the U.S. economy. And his recourse was to try to urge both sides to settle it. That was about it. One last point. The contract campaign should be outreaching to customers, the public, the media, community groups. This is critical in building support. As Greg said, unions are more popular now. We can take advantage of that. Get our message out. Have the public support their UPS driver and not the greedy corporation. We've got to frame the issues that way. Related question. Several people asked about rights in a strike because people haven't been on strikes before. The company cannot fire you, cannot demote you, cannot change your classification, etc. for striking. You will return to your job. As was said, management's threat is and will continue to be, you'll be laid off for ages because we'll lose all our work. But as noted in this presentation, and that's why knowledge is power, that's why we're getting this out, this is BS. The other companies cannot pick up UPS work, and we know what happened afterward in 97. I hope that addresses the right to strike issues.
All right. Following up on that, there were a few questions about the strike fund asking for clarification in the chat. So I'm going to... One question was just for Antoine, when you were talking about the strike benefits you were describing being per week or per month. I saw this was answered in the chat, but just to reiterate, those are weekly strike benefits. And then we have a question from Katie in Post Falls, Idaho. She says, I'm in a right to work state. About 50% of my building is not a member and do not pay union dues. For those people in right to work states who are not members at UPS, can they continue to work? If not, do they get access to the strike fund? Do any of our panelists want to talk about what happens with non-members in right to work states in the event of a strike?
I'll go ahead and take that, Scott. In right to work states, you have to be a member to receive the strike pay as a member. We are actively doing not only this in Local 89, but we've been doing this in other locals where we're using this as information to sign up these people who haven't joined yet, to get strength in numbers, to talk about them in the upcoming contract, to tell them how important it is for them to be members. And plus, by the way, you're going to get strike benefits too if you sign up. So it's not something any local should ignore. We're obviously not doing it in Local 89. I was just in Local 135 last week, and we spent a good portion of our time talking to the members about signing new members up in orientation, because this is not something that we should just wait on. We got several months to get this done, and people coming in the door as well.
Thanks, Thorny. So we're coming up on the hour. I think we just have time for a couple more questions. Sandra Chamberlain asks, when negotiations really get going in April, will these webinars keep happening and will we be keeping members in the loop? I'll just give a quick answer to this one. Absolutely. TDU will continue to do webinars, and so will the Teamsters Union. Information is power. Get as much information as you can from your locals, from the International Union, and from TDU. There was another question along these lines about, will TDU and locals stand in solidarity in a strike? Again, the answer is yes. We are all in this together. All the members here on this call are strong behind our new international leadership and the contract campaign, and we'll continue to stand together in the event of a strike. So, Sean, I don't know if you want to take back over. We're at an hour.
Yeah, that'd be great, Scott. Thank you. So now that we are wrapping up, you will get a feedback form by email and text. Let us know what you thought of this webinar. And if you got a question that wasn't answered during the course of the webinar, please put it in there. Most important, tell us how you want to get involved in the contract campaign. Don't just take this information for yourself. Use it to help win a good contract. On the feedback form, let us know if you want to help out with the contract unity pledge. We have over 1,100 UPSers registered on this call. If each of us went out and got 50 contract unity pledge cards signed by our coworkers, that's 55,000 signatures from this group alone. This single group could get us over a third of the way toward our national goal for this pledge drive. And I think that's very, very doable. Now, also let us know on the feedback form if you want to hold a UPS Teamsters United workshop in your area, or if you just want advice on organizing in your building or your local. Let us know. We will follow up. And finally, on that feedback form, if you appreciate the information that you got today and you want to be a part of a national network of UPS Teamsters, join TDU and get that free hoodie or that free banner, or both if you sign up for the 3-year membership. Now, with that, that is a wrap for today. Please send us back your feedback and